We have somebody, Jim Seward has been our state senator for 30 years, and people like him, but we have the same problems now that we had 30 years ago when we elected him. So we're hoping to put somebody else in there. So let me introduce Joyce St. George, who's running as a Democrat for the New York Senate District 51. Joyce?
Hi, everybody. Usually I have a mic with my bass guitar. I have a band. So if I start breaking out in song, you'll know why. Thank you all for coming. This is a really important election, and I can't tell you, I've got 9 counties that we're traveling in, and I can tell you that every time we have one of these meet and greet type of affairs, lots and lots of people are there of all ages and all backgrounds, and lots of kids, and it makes me just so happy. So, what I usually do is start my talks out by saying that I'm a fledgling politician, even though I don't like that word anymore, because I think it's been pretty well tarnished. But I will promise you 2 things. And anybody who's heard me speak before will know what I'm going to say. The 2 things I promise is that I will comfort the afflicted, and I will definitely afflict the comfortable. Those are my promises. My husband and I have been up here for about 40 years. We're down by Margaretville, but I live in the suburbs of Margaretville. In the middle of nowhere. I come from New York City. That's where I was born and raised. And yes, I did do some time in law enforcement. I am out now on good behavior. And I did do a lot of work on corruption. Corruption is one of the big reasons that I wanted to run, because I was asked to run several times, and I kept saying no. I'm retired. I have lots of other things I'd rather do with my retirement. But after about 5 times, somebody said to me, if you don't at least do this, don't say no until you at least one more time look at Jim Seward's record, and then tell us no. So I looked at Jim Seward's record, and within 10 minutes, I called up and said, I'm in. Now, I know Jim Seward, he's a nice guy. He gives a lot of money away, right? Fire trucks. He gives $250,000 for the Opera House over here. He's given a lot of money to the college. He's given a lot of money down my way. But I can tell you, and I say this every time, I was head of my hospital for a while. I was the chair of my hospital. And he gave $250,000 for a new roof. I'm very grateful for that. But if you go down below that roof and you go into the pharmacy, people are still paying $60, $70, $100 for a deductible. And if something happens and they have to go to the ER, they're going to be paying $2,500. Right? This is our reality today. We were 1 vote short of giving health care to every single person in this state. That's what we lost with last time. We've tried it 4 years in a row now to pass the New York Health Act. At this point, we're 1 vote short. And I can tell you from working in the hospital, chairing it, having to see the financials every month, and having to see the charitable care, and how much we give as a hospital to people who cannot pay for their insurance. I can tell you now, if we do not change the way we're doing health care, we will be crushed. The other thing that I'm very much involved in is I have a food pantry. We do it down in Margaretville. We're very proud of it. We started with 28 households. We're up to 525. It's not a good thing. People usually applaud with that. It's not a good thing. It's sad. We only have 3,600 people in my little town of Margaretville, and 525 households have to come to get food once a month. Most of them are still in their scrubs because they're hospital workers, or they come from, and this is I think the most painful part. We have a wonderful supermarket, Fresh Market. They come from Fresh Market. They are the cashiers at Fresh Market. They can't afford the food they see passed along all day long. So we have problems with poverty. We have a lot of problems, as Dennis was saying before, that we have seen for years and years and years. I have been here 40 years, and I'm looking at rural New York, and I'm watching it become more and more disappeared. It's fading into the sunset, and we are not getting the support we need. So as much as Senator Seward gives us money, number one, just a reminder, not his money, it's ours. And just so that you know, there's been a lot of in the 70s when I was arresting and prosecuting police and judges and attorneys, there was a clarity in terms of what was corruption and what wasn't. There was clarity in that. We understood where people were and where that line was drawn. Over the last 30, 40 years, what's happened? We have legalized corruption. So we now have lobbyists who are allowed to go in there, like with Senator Seward. He oversees, just so that you know, he oversees the Insurance Oversight Committee for our state. Okay, here's a test. I bet you're not going to figure out where he gets his money. You got it. He gets his money from insurance companies, at least $350,000 a year. He also gets another $100,000 or so from New York City real estate people, so that he will keep a tax loophole open to the tune of $1.4 billion a year. So we are actually, think about this, we are actually paying so that New York City real estate developers don't have to. We're paying our taxes, but aren't we nice people? Could you imagine what we can do with $1.4 billion? We have schools that are corroding. We can't pay our teachers enough. We have workers who are never going to be able to live on what they make. We have infrastructure that is crazy. I can't tell you how many shocks I have to put in my cars and our truck, right? And here's the kicker. There is, talk about legalized corruption, there is $11.6 billion that is kept outside of the New York State budget. So we all see the budget when it comes out, but there's $11.6 billion that's kept outside of it. What for? I call it the incumbent's insurance. It's discretionary money that senators and assembly people can give out. And that's how you get your $250,000 for your opera house and the $250,000 for the roof on our hospital. So we have money that we have paid for. It's our money, but it's not even accounted for. There's no accountability for it. You can look it up. It's called the State and Municipal Finance Program. It's called SAM, and it's under the New York State Dormitory Authority. So it's this kind of little slush thing that goes on, and we don't even know it. So Senator Seward is a very popular guy because he gives all this money out. He's never telling anybody where the money comes from, how he gets it, how he holds himself and anybody else accountable, and more importantly, what does that fund do to improve the overall community? So when we start talking about running for office and doing silly things like that, again, who really wants to run for office? It's not a thankful job. But at the same time, when you see all these things going on, it just makes you pause, and it makes you think, you know what? I think we can do better. And I think that when you start looking at his record in terms of what he votes for and what he doesn't vote for, then you start getting angry. And that's where I was at. So for instance, I don't know if you guys know what gay conversion therapy is. Does everybody know that? Okay. He's into it. As a matter of fact, there's a Daily Star article on it that he was pushing for it and pushing for insurance to cover it. Now, I have a coalition on opioids back in our area in Margaretville and Middletown, and I can tell you that you just about have to be dying of an overdose for your insurance company to pick you up to get treatment. But gay conversion therapy, yeah, why not? He actually lost that battle, thank God. But he also voted against gay marriage. He voted against a law that was passed about 3 months ago that would hold people who are found guilty of domestic violence. They would hold them from getting any kind of gun. He voted against that. So there's a lot of things that are going on in terms of money, in terms of how he presents the money he's giving out, in terms of money that we could have to really build our communities, but we can't because it's being given out piecemeal. And in terms of some of the decisions that he makes that I find appalling, they're counter to how I believe our community should be, and they also keep out large constituent groups. So one of the things that I get very, very concerned about is people who belong to LGBTQ communities are not being served. Not only are they not being served, they are actively being discriminated against. That's a large part of my community. As a matter of fact, we call ourselves gay and gray because we have an older community and we have a lot of people who are gay. And so that is the community that I know. And I know that these communities are all over our state. It doesn't even have to be in District 51. But these discrimination pieces that he's putting forward, they're going to affect the entire state. They're not just going to affect here. So those are some of the things that have caused me to want to run. Those are sort of the issues that I'm very concerned about. I'll tell you, I'm also concerned about farming. We are an amazing agricultural state, and we're losing that as much as we're losing our culture of what it's like to be in a rural community. We're losing all that. I'm very concerned about education. I'm very concerned about unions and collective bargaining. I know that I have people who work down by me who are called by their bosses and told, don't come in today. We don't need you. And they have 3 kids there, and they're trying to figure out how to pay rent and food and everything else. So we have to find ways of protecting people who may not even be in unions, but still need that kind of protection. These are the things that I stand for. I've talked a great deal about the environment and what is happening in New York State with pipelines. And I found out that you have, 82 bomb trucks driving through Oneonta every day. You know what bomb trucks are? You want to explain bomb trucks?
It's a compressed natural gas. It's a full tractor trailer. It carries 350 decatherms of gas. It has the explosive power of 100 tons of TNT.
Highly combustible. 82 a day go past here. They also go through Herkimer, and they go through so many other of our areas in New York State. And this is all not talked about. But this is where we have to start stepping up. It was wonderful. This morning we were at a Delhi rally to talk about the kids and what was going on in the border. And thank God we had that rally because we forced Trump to sign that paper. But as much as we can talk about what goes on nationally, there's so little that we actually can do other than vote some very good people into the Congress and the Senate. But New York State is ours. We could do a lot in New York State. And I can tell you right now, what's exciting to me, there are opportunities out here. I don't even think we can imagine them all. But there are so many amazing opportunities around here to get jobs, to get new careers, to get businesses going, to revitalize our community. There are so many opportunities, but they are not being taken advantage of. If we do not get broadband, if we don't do anything with our infrastructure, we can kiss revitalization goodbye. Imagine what $1.4 billion can do for the broadband. All we have to do is close a couple of loopholes, and we have enough money to do these things. So I'm not talking about raising taxes, I'm not talking about any of that stuff. What I'm talking about is, let's take the money that we are already paying into with this state and use it wisely. Stop throwing it away, stop giving it to the senators so that they can give themselves raises and give themselves, I mean, there's amazing things that are going on in the Senate and in the Assembly with our money that people do not know about. And it makes me crazy. I worked hard for 40 years running both a nonprofit and a for-profit organization. I traveled not only around the country, but around Europe and around South America and Canada. I know what it's like to work. I know what it's like to see people who want the opportunities but can't get them. And I can see how much beauty and how much we have, how much richness we have that's just going to waste. Like a flower that's just not being picked and it's just being left in a garden to just wither. I don't want the state to wither, and I certainly don't want rural New York to wither. So that is my speech. And I just am so thankful that we have people who are willing to do things and step up and scream and shout and throw things at TVs. Oh, I'll tell you one more thing. This is very cool. I don't think it's been done. So there are 8 women who are all running for the Senate in different districts. I'm just one of them. And 4 of us have banded together. So we've already sent out joint statements about the blocking that Republicans have done on reproductive rights. That was a bill that was just out last week that they blocked. And so we have gotten together and formed our own little team. And next week we're going to be doing a joint press conference because one of them is going to be running for Bonacek's seat, one of them is running for Amador, one of them is running for Sereno, and I'm running against Seward. Now, if we can all get in, number one, the goal is to change the culture of New York State government. I'm not saying that Senator Seward's a bad guy. He's probably a very nice guy. He's a product of his environment, though. So we have to change the environment. And you can't do it by just electing one person. And I'll tell you another thing. We women know how to clean up messes. And that's what the 4 of us are committed to do together. So with that, I take any questions, any comments, and thank you.